but increasing showers. I'm KIRO 7 Pinpoint meteorologist Nick Allard.
Cloudy skies, 45 degrees in downtown Seattle. I'm Lisa Brooks.
Listen on your smart speakers, Amazon, Google Home, and Apple HomePod. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM with Tom and Curly now on your drive home.
Thank you for hanging out with us on the G and Ursula show. G is taking a couple of days off. Feliks Banel is co-piloting with me today.
Roger
Felix,
that.
We've been talking about Valentine's Day, and you said that you had plans maybe for this weekend, right?
Yeah, just some sort of a day trip or overnight or something simple. But every day is Valentine's Day in my family.
And it should be. Now, today, Colleen O'Brien, our managing editor, was handing out Rice Krispie treats to everyone in the newsroom. It was very sweet.
If you haven't gotten one yet, one's coming your way.
And Rachel Bell, she put a sweet Valentine's card on my desk, the kind that you used to get in grade school.
I don't have a desk. I didn't get one of those.
Uh-oh.
I'm left out of that.
Well, it did bring up the discussion of whether kids should be forced to give Valentines to everyone, and we wanted to bring Colleen in to join our discussion.
I'm a force of nature that you can go. You can ignore.
Welcome,
is this my
Colleen.
theme song?
Yes.
Do I get a theme song?
Yes, this is your debut on the G and Ursula show.
You know what's funny?
What?
Sometimes I put this song on my way into work to get myself pumped up for the day.
Is that right? That's awesome. It was perfect.
I do. I've got my girl power song. Like, yeah, I'm a boss.
Peeling back the curtain a little bit
Literally.
here on KIRO Radio.
No, that's great. So, Colleen, you have a grade school child.
Yes, 6 years old.
Yeah. So, did she bring in Valentines for everybody? How'd that go?
Well, that's
morning?
required, and it has been ever since she's been in a daycare situation or even in kindergarten. Is the teacher sends home a list of all the kids of, here's everybody who needs a Valentine. And the same goes with birthdays, as I found out, which I think is fair, that if you're going to put out birthday invitations in the classroom, everybody gets an invitation. Now, there's a way to do it behind the scenes if you just want it to be an all-girls party or all-boys party. But yeah, everybody gets a Valentine. And this was the first year that gave me pause because she's been having an issue with another student. It's started with a little bit of harassment, sort of, touching and poking and prodding. She's told me about this one incident. This child cut in front of her in line, and she said, "Hey, you can't cut in front of me." And so what the child did was grab a pencil and made a stabbing motion at her.
Oh.
Like, don't tell me what to do, or I'm going to. So she told me about that. She's in tears. I said, okay, I'll talk about it. And the school responded great, got the counselor involved, and there's a safety plan and all of that. But it continues, it's not great, but she knows, be assertive, tell an adult, this is what you can do. And then the list comes home, and I go, why would I make my daughter give a love note to a child who threatened to stab her?
Ooh. So, but did you have you have to follow the rules, all right? So you did it or not?
She did, but she wanted to do it, and that's when Wednesday night she told me on the way home from ballet, she said, "Mom, maybe I'll give so-and-so too so that they'll be nice to me."
Nice.
Oh, you know what? And
that's
I've met
where
your sweet daughter.
Yes.
And she is just
She wants to be friends with everybody.
Yes.
Doesn't understand when people are mean. She wants to, and the people who are most mean to her, she works the hardest for them to become her friend.
Oh.
And so I've had to redirect. And so that's when I had to go, okay, you need to listen to me. It is not your job to make this person nice to you.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be a nice person on their own. And when they are, and it's consistent, then you can think about being friends with them. But I worry that that's what this precedent is setting up, that everybody gets a Valentine, especially in situations where serious harassment has occurred. And I don't want to set her up for later in life as, with her first boyfriend or girlfriend, I don't know, that I'm going to change this person. They're not the perfect partner for me, but I'm going to change them. That's not your responsibility.
Which is so great that you had that conversation already at a young age, is saying, you don't need to make this, not everyone's going to like you, and you don't need to try so hard. You don't need to be anything other than yourself, and you need to protect yourself, which is great.
And that the way they're treating you is not okay.
That's not okay. So as far as the Valentines, though, can you just not bring any?
I suppose you could.
Yeah.
But,
that would
when
deprive her
kids
of
get
the-
wrapped up in the,
Sure.
she wants to participate and she wants to be a part of it. And it's not as complicated to her as it is to me. I'm trying to set a good example. I want to plant a seed so that when one day it does become serious, when she's a teenager and there may be, violence involved or anything like that, that she remembers mom telling her, it's important how it's not your job to change them.
Yeah, because it's so. I mean, there's so little control you have as a parent over the kids your kid runs into at school.
Oh.
Because especially if your kid, which your kid sounds like is earnest and sincere.
Yeah.
And I've had this conversation with my daughter before. She's an adult now, but I feel like earnest, sincere kids. It might be the toughest to be a little kid, but in your later adult life, that's going to be a more rewarding and fulfilling life. So these sort of struggles that your daughter's having now with a bully and her desire to be earnest and sincere, and maybe they'll like me if I give them a Valentine. That's like, it's tough now, but I think long term, that's the kind of daughter you want. So I mean, I think you've done a good job raising her. I think that conversation you had the other day, what a great teachable moment, because there's so much the kids are expected to know when they show up at school that most parents don't have the time or don't have the wisdom or whatever, or just don't. It doesn't happen for kids, and those are the ones who cause a lot of the problems, in my experience.
Sure.
This also brought up another discussion, and it was eye-opening for me this morning. At 6 in the morning, I find out that 2 people I work with used to be bullies.
Yeah. I was a bully in elementary school. I was in a gifted child program. I guess they call it highly capable now. This was the very first year for a full-time gifted child program over in the Lake Washington School District. So I was in 4th grade, and they took me and 23 other kids, picked at random from about 100 eligible kids, and we were in this little classroom in Mark Twain School over in Kirkland, and it was like 24, not all malcontents, but there were kids like me who sort of, we were too clever for our own good, didn't know what to do with our energy and our interest. And I was younger than most kids because I started kindergarten at age 4.
Oh, my.
And so I was trying to impress these older kids.
Like Dory.
Yeah. No, Dory wasn't in my class. No.
Starting young.
That would be a revelation. Yes. No, but there was older kids who were sort of, because it was a 4th and 5th grade class, and the 5th graders, there were these kids I wanted to impress. And I found one way to impress them was to make them laugh. And one way to do that was by targeting kids who were able to be targeted. They had some sort of weakness or something, and I did terrible things. I said things I regret and made kids. Later in that, I was in that program for 3 years. I think in the 3rd year, there were kids who left the school right after the year started because we bullied them so much. And I say
How
we,
did
but
you
I take
change? Because you had to decide to stop being a bully.
You know, and not to blame I think the context means I'm the youngest of 9 kids, and a couple of my older siblings were pretty mean to me when I was a little kid. And so it's when I got to school, I finally had kids my own size that I could pick on.
Well, the way you're treated is often how you treat others.
Yeah, but I've learned, and years of therapy.
Sure.
And
Hey, we're
therapy
all
is
doing
helpful talking about it, but I feel guilty about some of these kids that I targeted, and I was part of this bullying. And it's the teachers, they tried to get involved too, but they couldn't stop us.
In the case of my 2 boys, my oldest son couldn't have a bigger heart. I mean, he is so compassionate, and he is such an empath, and he feels for other people.
I wonder where he gets it.
Yeah, I know. We've talked about that. My younger son, though, he's got a good heart as well, but there were times, and he would never be the active bully, but we would have to have conversations about, hey, if you see someone doing something wrong, or is making someone feel terrible, or you see someone being bullied and you're standing by, or you are at least the audience for that, because he said, I would never interact.
With sexism, racism, all of it.
Right.
You need allies to come in and help out.
I would try to tell
people
him.
with power that need to stop the behavior.
Exactly.
So in the case of the school, the principal, the teacher, the parents need to get involved. And I've had somebody reach out and say, I think when kids act that way, the stabbing motion and the harassment, it's a cry for help.
Yeah.
That's not my daughter's responsibility to help him, though.
No.
Right? Like her giving him 2 Valentines instead of 1 is not going to turn his life around. Parental involvement and adult, that's what's going to do it. That's not the burden my daughter bears.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I also would say, though, that if it were, hey, don't give this kid a Valentine, that would also, and I know that's not what you said, but it's like
don't
to
give it to
ostracize
him.
the kid because of this bad behavior
Yes.
at that young age would
Right.
be.
Yeah, it was don't give it to him expecting that he's
That's
going
right.
to suddenly be nice. The
No.
expectation of, I'm going to gift this to you. I'm going to give of myself and my time to make you feel, no.
Yeah, no.
No.
Well, the other former bully
Whoa,
is
whoa,
our
whoa.
producer.
Whoa.
This
call that on
surprises me less because Andrew's kind of a spitfire. I'll
Yeah,
tell you, you don't
feisty.
mess with
Feisty.
Andrew. Felix, you're a little softer. I'm surprised you.
I've
were
learned.
bullied.
It's as you
shocked
get older,
me.
you learn and you get wisdom. So I'm grateful for being smarter than I was 45 years ago.
Andrew, what do you want to confess?
Well, I mean, I was much the same way as Felix. Like, I was also in a gifted program, and it was, like you said, kind of a classroom of oddities. Myself amongst them, of course. And I was that kid that would pick on some of the other kids in the class. And that was kind of a behavior that extended all the way through high school. And that did also, like Felix, come from an experience with older boys. And I think it becomes this perpetuating cycle. Like when I was in kindergarten, my brother was in first grade, we'd ride share with older kids, and it was a daily experience of, being harassed, of name calling, etc. And the point where it stopped for me, and I think it culturally stopped, was in high school. I went into a wrestling program that had a very kind of brutal hazing tradition. And there was no adult oversight at the beginning of the practice every day.
Wow.
And that continued from my freshman year all the way to my senior year, at which time there were actually consequences. A kid and his parent went to the school and said, hey, this is something that's going on every day. And I remember feeling like almost like angry, like, why are they stopping this? Like, I had to go through this. Why? Like, how come these kids get it better than I had it? And it just totally shifted my brain. Like, after I got over that anger, I was like, why wouldn't everyone want to have it that way? But it, like you said, it does take someone at the top intervening to make a culture shift.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Interesting discussion. I'm sure there's a lot more that we could discuss about this.
I'm really sorry. I'm still really sorry. There's people I need to reach out to and apologize to someday. I'll do it.
I'm only laughing because I was truly shocked. I just couldn't believe the two of you. Coming up next, it's scenarios time.
Enjoying G and Ursula, but missing the Tom and Curly show?
You can have both.
Listen to your favorite KIRO radio shows on demand with the KIRO radio app and on the podcast page at mynorthwest.com.